Share my screen here to get going. So my name is Kevin McCaffrey. I work with Trident, and we're here today to talk about Curate Fx. And I'm joined by James O'Sullivan from Huawei, and from Ithisham, and Ithisham also from STC. And both of the guys are going to be talking about their experiences of using Curate Fx as part of their Catalyst projects. So this webinar is being recorded, and what we want to do is kind of leave time at the end of this for people to ask questions, and if you have any questions, even as we're going through, you can ping them into the chat window as well. So basically, what we want to cover off in the session today, really, there's kind of three main parts to it. One is you got to listen to me going through a few slides, talking about Curate Fx and you know, setting the scene for two-star attractions, which will give us the views of their projects. And then James will go through and kick off and talk about the work that they did as part of the 5G Ride-On project. And really what we want to do in this webinar is kind of explain how Curate Fx has been used by the Catalyst, what's the Catalyst teams, what were the benefits that they had from it, and some of the experiences that were gained. And actually also to give you some ideas of how people used it. And I'll talk a little bit more about the resources that are available within Curate Fx and outside of it that can help you. So, and then, you know, obviously we'll kind of jump through any questions people might have as we progress through the webinar. So a little bit of background on Curate Fx. Curate Fx was launched in 2017, and it was based primarily on a lot of work that was being done at the time around B2B2X business scenario planning. And you know, there was a TM Forum template called the B2B2X business scenario template, which was used by most Catalyst teams, and it was a PowerPoint. So as a result of that, Trident, along with the TM Forum, you know, created the first version of Curate Fx that was used in 2017. And since then, you know, we've had over 80 Catalyst teams using it, numerous people from a range of different companies that we'll see. The product is ISO 27001 certified, so it's very strong in terms of data security. The area that people work on as part of the Catalyst is a private workspace for the Catalyst teams only. And you know, then you know, other users of Curate Fx may have their own private workspaces also. This slide provides an idea of some of the topics that have been covered off in Curate Fx through the years. You know, quite a range of them. And each year it kind of changes, but obviously where things are at the moment, you know, the amount of 5G use cases is becoming very, very relevant and prominent in many of the projects. This is just a quick kind of dump of some of the logos of the organizations that have been involved in the Catalysts over the last kind of 12 months that have been using Curate Fx. So, you know, one of the things that the guys have probably described is the fact that with the Catalyst teams, because everybody is by nature remote and everybody is in different locations, being able to have a kind of a structured collaborative platform is really useful. Now, one of the benefits of, you know, working in this environment and working in this collaborative Curate Fx environment is that as the projects progress and they get team approved, they then become available for members and for the other Catalyst teams to look at. So within Curate Fx, we've got, I think it's over 40 different example Catalyst best practice and case study projects that people can look at. So one of the things I always recommend for people who are using the product for the first time is go in and have a look at the example projects, explore them. They're all read only, but you can actually take a copy of any of them and just work away on yourself to learn. It's really important to see how other people have done things because you can learn a lot from that. And also there's ideas you can use and for your own projects as well. One of the things that we do want and we do get is feedback from the Catalyst teams about what they found in terms of some of the key benefits, and you'll hear hopefully some of that from James and Itisham as well. But some of the key elements that people kind of resonated with people is providing the structure, a structured methodology to follow. So by providing those kind of specific guide rails that help you through the project. So for those of you who may never have done a Catalyst project before, within CurateFx, it actually provides you with the stepping stones for you to follow. And I know when Itisham talks later, he'll be talking about the ecosystem playbook that his Catalyst team developed, which actually helps service providers and others in a specific way. The other important thing about this is that it enables the collaboration, but also it has many of the TM Forum assets there at your fingertips, whether it's the APIs, whether it's eTom, SID, and other areas as well. So just digging into a little bit about the product, as we're all aware, things have been, digital transformation is all over the place, and it's, obviously very relevant for lots of people. I think one of the things that when we talk to Catalyst teams that the feedback we get is that as a result of using the product, they found that they were able to, the level of effort and productivity and efficiency that they put into the design or the strategic part of their project was really critical to accelerating the implementation and execution further on. So it's really about that kind of design and that strategy up front is where we're focused on. And then obviously you can take content and push it down into Jira or Confluence or other areas. So many projects approaching their Catalyst in different ways. Some are very technical centric, some are more business focused, some are ecosystem, some of them are very focused on the stakeholders, and also some are directed more at different types of people within a service provider or within a vendor. So, the beauty of CurateFx is that it enables people to see the project from different perspectives, but also to be able to home in and look at things from a specific stakeholder and say, hey, if we change this, what will it impact? How will it look? And also kind of taking things from a high level and then bringing it down step by step. So within CurateFx, many of you are working on ecosystem type projects where you've got many participants, and it's important, it's a key driver within many of the projects to understand the roles and how that works. And one of the beauties of CurateFx is that it provides this structured collaboration, and the guys will kind of show you what we mean by that when we look at the project. So you want to be able to have consistency in stakeholders, maybe in products and services, and look at how all of those things are connected. But underpinning this, you've got a range of capabilities or features within the product that enable you to do what you want to do with the project and to define what's required. And those range from, data catalog type information, whether it's maturity model information or APIs or process frameworks or TM Form frameworks, down to things like Kanbans to track activities, to ecosystem views, to business models, to different versions of canvases. And I know James is probably going to talk a little bit about the use of some of those canvases and how important and useful they are for kind of getting everybody on board in a project. So lots of tools in there, but the template kind of provides you what you need, and then you can add more as needed. So CurateFx does kind of guide you through that kind of process from understanding the business opportunity, and this is one area that certainly Itisham will be talking about, but also how you take that from a high level and bring it right down to being able to scope the project. And as I talked about, there's quite a wide range of assets available from the TM Forum within the product built in. And, those are all there and helpful for you to be able to look at, whether it's, end-to-end process flows, whether it's API information, all sorts of data in there that you can have, rather than having to go and look for it in spreadsheets and PDFs. And then in addition, you've got other capabilities which are more at the business level that allow you to kind of add the business context around what you're doing. So really, one of the key things with CurateFx is not just necessarily looking at it from the technical side, but actually quite often starting at the outside or at the high level and saying, why are we doing this? Who's involved? What are the objectives? What's the value? And actually storyboarding the project, because it becomes really important from a communication point of view when you're presenting this to other people. there are a range of resources available for people, ranging from on the TM Forum website. If you do have any specific kind of operational questions related to the catalyst, such as we didn't get contracts, or what do we need to do about this or that, Jessica's your lady for that. Basically anything else from CurateFx, just ping me an email is probably the easiest way to do it. And I know I've met with a couple of the teams already who've asked for specific guidance and coaching in certain areas. So if there are people, any teams out there who are a bit nervous and would like some more kind of onboarding, let us know. And, you know, I come on, or I may even rope in some of the other guys to give their views to help out. So I'm gonna pause there, because what I want to do is I want to hand over to James, who's going to take us through, you know, what his experiences were of using CurateFx on his Catalyst project, and potentially what his plans are for the coming Catalyst season, if we want to call it that. But I'll just pause there and just see if anybody had any questions or anything at this stage. And if you do, maybe you can just ping. I think you can just add them in the chat anyway, if needed. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing so that James should be able to share. So if I stop sharing, are you able to share there, James, for yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. I should be able to know. Let me know if you see the picture.
Got it.
Okay, right. Thanks very much, Kevin. Right, so I'm going to talk about our project for just a couple of slides, so that when I go into the tool itself, it'll make a bit more sense. So the project was called 5G Ride On, and it was to create a business continuity solution for electric vehicle charge point operators. So this was the app. So you can see who the champions were: British Telecom, Telecom Italia, Orange, ourselves, Huawei, Incognito, Tioco, and MDS Global. So back to what Kevin said, fairly distributed group: Israel, Canada, ourselves here in Ireland, but also some colleagues in China, the UK, Italy, France. So quite distributed, and the tool helps with some of that, and I'll maybe explain a bit of that as we get into it. So I'll very briefly then go through what the project was trying to do. This is the customer journey for somebody who's an electric vehicle owner or user. They obviously become aware of the fact that they need to recharge. So they will research different alternative service options. So which are the nearest stations? They'll select one of those options, travel to that destination, and then try and make the charge, which first starts with prepayment. So my little lightning bolts here are potential pain points that can happen along this customer journey, and those were the ones that we tried to focus on within the Catalyst from a telco perspective. So I'll just highlight one of them here. So when you're prepaying before you actually make a charge, this is fundamental to the business transaction. So if you can't make that prepayment authentication, you literally cannot recharge your car. So it's quite fundamental to the business process. So that was part of what the Catalyst tried to focus on from a telco perspective, to provide business continuity in as many scenarios as possible for that. So I think I have one more slide, and then I'm going to go into the tool. So our approach within the project was to make CurateFx our footprint, our sort of ongoing daily Bible for the project. And we did a lot of experimental work in there at the very beginning. And the main, if you get one takeaway from me, it's to start early with CurateFx and try stuff out, particularly if you're doing ecosystem design, because you'll get a lot back from that. And the more you put into it, the more you'll get out of it. Then I'm going to cover a bunch of parts that we found particularly useful when we were doing our elaboration around stakeholders, vision and problem statements, product catalog, use cases, and the canvas. And then I'll briefly talk about something that wasn't there last year but is there this year, and I'll talk about that and the extra value that I think it creates. So I'll go over to my browser now and run it. Okay, so I'm inside. Let me do F11 on this to make it a bit bigger. So I'm inside in CurateFx. So on the left-hand side here, you have your projects. So this is the one that we're talking about, 5G Right On. So when you come in, you'll have your project and possibly some others. So this is our project. It starts with a number of sections which are customizable. I'll kind of address, I suppose, some of the key points that we started with and got value out of. As Kevin said earlier, one of the key things you need to do as quickly as possible is try and define the value and who you're providing it to. It's not always as obvious as it might seem, especially in the ecosystem type catalysts. So there's various different sections within CurateFx that you can use for creating business drivers, creating vision statements, and so on. But I'll first show you our ecosystem, which is rather complex because of what it is. So this should be coming up now. I'm running over wireless 5G fixed wireless, so the speed is not super fast. So this was our ecosystem. And you can see it's quite elaborate. So obviously you have an EV user on the right-hand side, but then there's lots and lots of other providers involved. There's obviously information providers from the context of where can I get information on my mobile phone to tell me where the nearest charge points are. And then there's the actual charge point operator who may have a number of charge stations. And then there's the whole energy part of this. So obviously the energy gets created and distributed. These are all part of the broader ecosystem. So we mapped the full ecosystem at the very beginning. And when we went to use cases, and I'll show this a little bit later, we actually sliced this down or cut out a fragment of it to focus on the use case in question. But it was very useful for the whole team, to my mind, that we elaborated as much of the ecosystem that we thought was useful and educational for us to get moving on it. So our main actors after we did this were obviously the end user, the vehicle user, the application provider, which would be an app on your phone that allows you make the prepayments, but also the finding out where the nearest charge points are. So you can select any of these items and do various different modifications or link them to other artifacts in many cases. So that was our high level ecosystem. And then with that sort of defined many of the stakeholders. So when we got into drivers and what we were focused on, you create your drivers from the point of view of different stakeholders. So these were our very high level drivers. So improve the customer journey, the one that I showed you, make it easier for people to do business with you. And you can go into this then and you can assign the different stakeholders that are involved in making that happen. And all of these connections, I'll show a visualization on that in a minute, are very useful because, as Kevin said earlier, you might change the use case later and say, okay, what does that mean for this actor, for that actor, and the other actor? There's visualizations in here that show you that this use case now impacts 1, 2, 3, or 4, or whatever the right number of stakeholders are. So this is what we did as early as we could in the project to give us good direction on what we're actually focused on. And then these are more sort of KPIs. So obviously we wanted to make sure that transactions were as successful as possible, that they were fast, that the information was always available, and that it was accurate. So the tool helped us iterate this over time. You won't get this right the first time. You'll continue to build this out over time. And just one feature you can have here, just in the context of collaboration. So let's say I put a bunch of stuff in here today, if I'm starting a new project, and one of my team members then could put comments on what I've said. similar to, you know, a social type application. So they can put comments on what I've written here, and you can collaborate in that way if you're not all working on it together at the same time. So that's, I suppose, vision and drivers. In terms of the use cases, then I showed you a very high level ecosystem diagram. When we got into use cases, you can define problem statements, which is very useful to keep you on the straight and narrow regarding the use cases. So within here, then anyone who's elaborated use cases before will see this or recognize this type of structure. So you can literally add the particular actor, and it gives you the various different sections to keep you focused. Then you can have user stories, but I'm going to go to the specific ecosystem diagram now for this use case. So you don't just have to have one ecosystem diagram. You can use the tool in any way you want. So we just took another instance of the same ecosystem diagram and only focused on the actors that are relevant to this use case. Then when you get into use cases and actually get down to you know, workflows and Bpmn diagrams, let's see if I can show you one of those. Those capabilities are all here. So you'll see here at the top, this is a Bpmn diagram. So this shows on the left-hand side the use case we're talking about and the different actors that are involved. And then all of these items, you know, there's a full list of shapes, etc. Like most modeling tools. The good thing about these is they're all connectable. So over here, then you can actually say who it's for and what service it relates to, if that's important to what you want to do. Okay, so all of the diagrams, they're clickable entities, and you can link them to other artifacts within the project. By the way, all of these diagrams, and this is important when you get out the other side of the project, can be exported. The whole project can be exported, or just one part of it if you wish, to Word and or PDF, and you can create, you know, we as one part of our project, we wrote a document as well. We created a document as part of it. So obviously we exported a lot of the content from within CurateFx to give us the document we needed at the end. What else do I want to say here? Oh yeah, the business canvas. So this, you've probably seen things like this before. There's a few different versions of it available, but it gives you a one-stop diagram to say who are the key partners, what are the key activities involved. This is written now, by the way, in the context of the electric vehicle charge point operator. So these are the things that they're focused on in terms of value propositions. These are the channels they sell through. These are the customer relationships that they need to deal with, and these are the segments. This is really up to you and your project, how you want to use this. We ended up using it in a couple of different ways here. So there's some goals in here that are not coming directly from the charge point operator. So when I hover over this here, you'll see that this goal, the CSP is responsible for delivering on that, whereas other ones are coming from the charging station operator. So this one, I would say, is quite flexible in terms of what you want to do with it, but you need to communicate how you're doing that when you deliver out the project the other side. And then you can put in resources here as well. So anything with an icon for a man there means that it has links. So these are the assigned stakeholders for that particular resource. And again, there's various different options here. What are the resources? Are they physical? Are they intellectual, financial, whatever it might be? Because in some cases for payments, it may well be financial. So these are all sort of a function of what your project is going to deliver. The other thing I want to mention, which may be important, depending on the focus of your project, it may be more important for you to map different things, different aspects to particular TM Forum artifacts. So frameworks mappings or mappings to TAM or ETOM We did a number of these, and you can drill into these in detail. So you'll be familiar with the standards type diagram that exists for this. So again, not every project is going to cover all the bases here. We focused on the ones and put in ones here, or I should say map ones that are relevant and more interesting for our project. So some of these you'll see there's nothing done on them, and then more of them there is. And you can drill on this and see the underlying components within product configuration and so on, and the relevant actors for that you can see here are highlighted. So that's really down to what the focus is for your particular project. For us, the main thing was around defining the value and helping us define the value earlier on. One thing I want to mention quickly was these sections we used a lot in terms of vision. At the very start, let's just bring this up. So this is a very high level vision for the charge point operator. I want to go to the project I'm working on this year. Now, I'm not going to share any intellectual property here. I'm just going to show one diagram. The project we're working on this year actually is about automotive as well, but it's a bit different. But what has been added to CurateFx in the last 12 months is something called Mission Canvas. You could also call it Vision Canvas, but this I think is really, really strong, and I'm going to show it to you in the other project. The value that we're getting out of this is because we're actually focused on multiple different players. You can have a mission canvas or a vision canvas, if you prefer that name, for different actors within your ecosystem. So the main actor within this other project is a toll road operator. So this is the mission canvas. So many of the things around drivers and so on, you can literally put them directly in here. So if I'm a toll road operator, my value props are improve road safety, reduce travel times, you know, carbon emission footprint reduction, all that kind of stuff. But the key thing down here is these are the things I care about. So these are literally KPIs around vehicle speed, traffic density, traffic incidence rates. Obviously, I want to minimize the number of accidents that happen in my road. And obviously, I want to maximize toll revenue if it's a road that actually has a toll on it. What we're doing then for the other actors, and one of them is the CSP, you can have one of these for each party or the parties that are most important to your project. So we have another one for CSP, and this one is sort of a work in progress. We don't have all this done yet. So to enable that toll road operator, we're using a network service, relatively new network service called V2X, which is Vehicle to Infrastructure set of services. So the KPIs and the definition of done or mission achievement type aspects for the CSP will be V2X availability, time to respond to order inquiries from road traffic operators, and time to provision them, and items like that. So this will be fully built out for the CSP as well. But it gives you a very clear view of the different actors within the ecosystem and the ones that you're most focused on. So the way we'll probably play this, and I'm speculating here, but I think where this will be useful is we have a couple of different use cases. Some of them are very focused on the toll road operator, and then the more technical regarding the service provider. And we can actually split up a little bit from the team perspective and actually drive down in detail on the different aspects. So I think this is very strong to actually bring the team together and focus on the right mission statements and vision or goals for the project as early as possible. So as I said earlier, the main thing I want to leave you with is do this as early as you can, because you'll reap the benefits towards the end when you're having to create these slide decks for the event that happens where you have to communicate the value. This will help you define the value very, very early on and keep you focused on it.
Wow.
Excellent.
I'll
That's great,
leave it there, I think, Kevin.
No, that's great. I guess maybe one final thing, and I want to make sure we have time. If you can go back to the 5G project landing page,
Yeah.
One of the things, a couple of things just that are worthwhile just to point out here is that you've got some of you who would have used the product last year will notice a change in here. That's one of the updates to the product, in that you've got the content, and you've got another tab to the left of that, which is the overview. And that overview, if it gives you more information about who's on it. But also at the bottom, for example, resources, that's where you could, for example, put a link into your Confluence page or to whatever else, so that you can have external links at the project level as well. So that's useful. Excuse me, if you go up to the top again then, James, and just maybe click on the stakeholders. So as James was saying, having that consistency in terms of the list of stakeholders throughout the project is very useful. But where it really comes into play is when you're able to look at this stakeholder map. So maybe, James, you want to just kind of give it a short overview of what they're.
Yeah, sorry, I meant to cover that. So yeah, as you can see, there's a huge number of stakeholders here, but some of these are more important than others. And what this is showing is, for the different content sections that you've filled out within the project, for example, I can see that the EV users involved in use case 2, as are a number of others. So you can navigate from the use cases to the stakeholders or down into details. Let me see if I can find. Yeah, so this is business capability. So if you want to get down to the actual ETOM aspects within business capability, so these are 3 categories of business capabilities. One is core, one is supporting. You literally go down and see these are the capabilities that matter to this project. So whatever you end up inputting, you can drive it through this screen in terms of navigating the different project and understand the dependencies between different items, which is quite powerful.
Excellent. That's great. Well, thanks for that. And hopefully we'll have time at the end if there's anybody has any questions. But if not, I'd recommend the 5G project is available as an example project for people to look at and explore and read only. And as I said, I really would recommend people kind of play around with the projects in that way. Okay, excellent. So I guess, James, if you can stop sharing, so we can let Itisham start. And I guess, Itisham, we're going to have it's a slightly different approach you're taking, in that the Catalyst project was very much around creating this ecosystem playbook. But I think what you're going to show is how that end product was then used in I want to say a real world type example.
Absolutely. I'm hoping that everybody can hear me clearly. And thanks, James and Kevin, for pretty much a good all-round coverage on the product. So I was going to just showcase some of the, another example of how to set it up, and a lot, very similar to what James has done. But what I'm about to show you is how it's flexibly, you can just tailor it to your particular project very easily. Let me just kind of dive right in to give you a walkthrough on another Catalyst, just like yours, that we just finished this past year and are going into phase 2. One of the benefits of this MyBit is that you can actually use something like this as a template for your ecosystem project. This particular Catalyst project had STC leading from a CSP side, and CSG, IBM, TCS, Zira, and of course Trident also part of the project. So just a few parts of the playbook that I want to walk you through of how, just give you an example of an actual STC project, which is executed with CurateFx using the ecosystem template. So what I'm doing is I'm taking that template on CurateFx and showing you the actual data that was used for a project at STC. And the goal there was to look at a CPaaS platform, evaluate it from an ecosystem perspective, then break it down into capabilities and further down into use cases that can be used for RFP, for development of the internal consensus and the actual execution of the project. So you can look at, so basically CPaaS is where, you have a whole bunch of services that are it's an API business, essentially, your comms as a service, model a platform business, which is essentially what most ecosystems are. So this toolkit that I'm showing you is is actually the ecosystem playbook template, right? So it consists of 3 phases and 9 steps. The first phase, of course, is the visualize ecosystem phase, in which you do a lot of the visualization of the players, their objectives, their goals. Then you model the opportunity, right? So you look at the opportunity that's at hand, you've selected it, and now you want to model it for growth, right? So you want to say, okay, how am I acquiring customers? How am I going to retain customers? And I build an opportunity canvas, which is a brand, it's a custom made canvas for this particular modeling exercise. And then you in the third phase, you identify the capabilities, and these capabilities are a result of an elaborate kind of an exercise of mapping tables that actually allows you to look at business capabilities in light of all the participants that are participating in the ecosystem, and from a task-based view, you actually go all the way down to user stories, and these user stories are then required to kind of just you want to aggregate that data and use that for internal development. Now, all of this this exercise was actually conducted on the actual SDC CPaaS platform using Curate Fx. So what I'm going to show you is actually not just a template that's also available on Curate Fx for all the other Catalyst for players. If you want to use parts of it, that's the big thing. With Curate Fx, you can use parts of projects that you really like as components to plan into your own project, or you can use entire sets of data, like Kevin was mentioning. Just copy it, go to your space, start maneuvering it, fit it to your project. So that's exactly what you can be doing. And what I'm showing you here is the STC project on CPaaS using that template. So I'm just going to dive right into the content. So as I mentioned, 3 big phases, 9 steps, what you see on the screen here, 9 elaborate steps. And I'm going to give you an example, just like James did, of various types of components that I just showed you visually. Now, what you saw was just visual data that was just brought together to represent the idea. But here, what you're seeing is actually interconnected data for your project. So you create data for the project, you tie it all in together, just like James also demonstrated with different types of canvases, with different types of tables. You have maps, you have TM Forum standards, you have libraries. Now, all of that data is actually only meaningful when it's connected together. So what we've done is, in the template, there's many opportunities to connect some of that data together so that it coherently produces a good picture. The other thing is that when you start out with Curate Fx, it's just as simple to use as I'm showing you right here. You can actually start to drag and drop stuff in and out of, you add new section, you just name something and pick from a list, right? So you want to add a new module, fine, just go to what module you want to add. You want to add a lean canvas, label it, and you start adding it. So the ease of use is the starting point. You have 5 people in your Catalyst. Each one of them, when they get their accounts, they're just going to be able to just build these, what you see on your screen, all these different sections together, label them, add different components to them, and that off you go. You're pretty much started. You're able to collaborate. So the idea is ease of use. Anybody who can use Word or an Excel sheet, well, actually Excel sheet, not everybody can use, but anybody who can use the computer can use this tool. So they can just start throwing stuff together, and there you go. So with our template, so I'll just show you how you can actually, I think we already, the team went over what this was. So you can draw up a stakeholder map. In my case, a very complex and a real life stakeholder map for SDC, in which you have all these capabilities, all these stakeholders tied into very complex structures, like you have your canvases, and these canvases have all these other values. I'm sorry, I have to sort of constantly when I'm showing these things, and then you can have these other data points with all kinds of different modules and lists and capabilities tied together. So so this allows you to present this information, to collect this information, and everything from a stakeholder's perspective. This web can be used as a presentation to jump to slides, but you can also look at all your key stakeholders in one place. And of course, you can, you create this data very easily by, just adding all those modules, defining the stakeholders, and then you get the opportunity to tie each component that you add later into your project. You can then tie into each of these stakeholders. And now what you're doing is you're creating this map. And as a result of this map, you're now able to, as a team, just look at all the relationships you've created, fix the stuff remove the stuff you don't want, add the stuff, decomplex it, you go about it the way you want, easy as you like. So in this case, and you have similar sort of, you could be, if your project involves products and services, as did this project, again, you have the flexibility to defining products, and these services can be defined in a very easy way, then linked up, right? So you can actually end up linking these to various types of assets and properties. And I'm just about to show you different types of assets that you can create. So you can create, strategic stuff, drivers of a business. You come in, you show how something may be important for the project. You're trying to showcase some sort of data item, or you're trying to do what James and his team has done brilliantly, is to create these, visualizations of the project, like we showed, with ecosystems, like really simple as-is diagrams that can then turn into complex diagrams, and so all this strategic data based on the template steps, we make it really easy. You can just kind of, it's mostly a drag and drop affair, to be honest with you. And so what you end up doing is, howsoever you'd like to visualize. You saw with James, very, very elaborate pieces of data, elaborate modules. Here you're seeing some very simple ecosystem visualizations with all the stakeholders that we already decided, that you just saw, right? So all those relationships coming in. Some of these relationships you can actually go all the way down to talk about, the ODA components, like which APIs. You are actually going into design effort in terms of how you're actually visualizing, or even projecting in the future what your ecosystem is going to look like, right? You have things like, I think this was already mentioned, a lot of it I'm actually following up a couple of guys who know their product, Curate Fx very well. So a lot of it is repeat action. So here we've used what we call a platform canvas, because this is a platform ecosystem project. Lots of very interesting information, lots of templates that you can use. One of them is this platform canvas, which is actually talking about infrastructure, which is talking about, which stakeholders this infrastructure is related to, what are the details. You actually have a canvas which talks about, what kind of transactions are going to happen. And you have, associations with products and things that so lots of, like I mentioned earlier on, the data is only as good as its connectivity to other pieces of data. So when you're doing your Catalyst project, it's important for you to put a lot of that data together and connect it to each other, as you intend to do. We have, you can then also in step 4 of the playbook, for example, we do simple, listings of value propositions, in which case you kind of, sometimes you just need lists of things, and you want to connect them to stakeholders and to other basic items. So what is in it for everyone, kind of a basic tabular data. So don't think that this is just about graphics and tables and canvases. It's also your, simple unstructured data tied again to meaningful events and entities within your model. So it's an easy to use data entry, which then translates into an actual data model. You can actually create entities and link all the data together. One of the very interesting ways we use it is to actually, upfront I showed you how you can use the Osterwilder, artifacts in canvases, and that's easy, right? Because you just bring them in, put all your data in. This is a totally custom canvas that we created, right? So this is the opportunity I mentioned upfront, that part of the ecosystem template is to come up with a modeling framework. And this modeling framework actually deals with a custom canvas. And this custom canvas right here, as you see, has components, which is then tied to other components. And you have all these growth loops that I mentioned that are then, you know, targeting all these capabilities for the ecosystem. And so you can create unconventional diagrammatic visual data sets, right? So that's what's happening here. Let me just show you how, as a result of this, in the next step, which is the steps 8, 7, and 8 in our playbook, we were able to do something that a lot of you will do when you're designing in your exercise for you know, your Catalyst project. And here, you know, we're using notations, standard notations, and for capabilities, for example, you can go all the way down and you can start looking at, okay, which capabilities are these mapped to these value streams, mapped to these, you know, stages or data loops that we created. All of that mapping tables that you saw is right here, and they're actually connected to the actual, you know, GBA, for example, the Business Architecture Guild, the standard capabilities. You have these standards loaded up in your project that you can then start mapping to the actual frameworks, right? So you could be connecting these to your ETOM, your TAM entities, if you like. So here, in this case, these are business capabilities being mapped to these various value stages. And so this is, again, a different type of data structure, right? So you go from simple listings to your elaborate, you know, tables, and then you go to these mappings of various stage mappings. So in the last stage, you know, the outcome of our project actually is to go from an opportunity all the way to capability. And so what it ends up doing is, what you have on the screen right now is all these capabilities. What we've done is we've gone into each one of these capabilities and created a Kanban, and actually a delivery train for those capabilities, by essentially defining what are the different user stories within each capability. And so this is an excellent tool for that. So what you're going to end up doing in this case is, you have the capability and you now are drilling down into each of these capabilities with these use cases, user stories. Each user story can then actually be defined for each stakeholder. It can be defined for additional capabilities that are built into it. It can be then, you know, you can actually connect it to something that, you know, you want to, any modules that you want to, for example, use for assessment. We use this Kanban to, for example, take each of the component of a capability, move it to assess. When we move to assess, we can then start attaching it to something downstream. Could be a process, could be a team member, could be a technology element. I could be associating this particular user story to an ETOM component, to a small process component within ETOM, or I could be going to an ODA component and assigning an API model. I could be leaving comments. I could be drawing a process diagram. And all of those things, as I do that and I move out to budget it or move out to plan, I can then eventually declare that this part of the capability is actually available. And so I can drill down through very, very, you know, all through our mapping table, we are able to create all the various building blocks of a business capability and actually track it, take it to Jira if you want, take it to a downstream system where actual teams are working on it. In our case, all of these components that you see, and by the way, the color coding is telling you that within an ecosystem, is this a CSP facing a component of the capability, or is it a partner facing, or is it a developer facing, or is it another type of ecosystem participant facing? Allowing our collaborative teams to look at these descriptions, to then attach relevant mappings within CurateFx, and then taking that into your release trains, into your delivery trains, and being able to work together. You could build something as simple as an RFP, or you could decide to do the project and use the swim lanes here in the Kanban to actually deliver the project. So So that was the goal. Start from a very unstructured data, start from a very unstructured strategy, let the teams come in, define all the various components that lead up to something as structured and actionable as what you see right here in front of you. So that was the experience in the project. Hopefully I was able to show how easy it is to create all the different types of data, right? And connect them together, and that it's easy to do. And then as a group, when you do it and do it collaboratively, you're going to save hours and hours of, obviously nobody's working full time on these projects. So this really saves you time. And you know, in the future, like I'm showing you in real life situations, you can use the tool to develop projects.
Excellent. That was great, Itisham. Thanks very much. If I can take the control back from you. Did anybody have any questions there for either Itisham or James?
I had a very brief one. If it is brief, Itisham, I haven't used this part. When you export to Jira there, does it ask you just for your account information and that's it? Or how does it come out?
Yeah, so in that version there, it's basically just using it into a CSV that allows you to use Jira import map. However, CurateFx does support the integration with the Jira API. And in that situation, there's a mapping required because, as you know, every single company uses Jira differently, and what an epic is in one company is not an epic somewhere else.
Exactly.
So there is a mapping exercise that can be done there. One thing I did want to do, let me just go in. I'm just going to share my screen for a second, and go into CurateFx as well. One thing I wanted to make sure with people that, you know, what you're looking at are guys that at the end of the life cycle of the project, they've been working on this for, you know, 6-9 months. So there's a lot of effort has gone into it, but there's a wide range, as I said, of example projects that are available within the product for people to look at, you know, and create their own versions. But when you create your own project, so if I just go a new project, and most catalysts when they start off will be starting off using a project based on something called the business scenario template, and it provides you with a more kind of a simplified structure for people to use. So if we go to content, it talks about, you know, define your key stakeholders, your drivers, and your overall value. Think about your products and services and the ecosystems, and then it gets into more and more detail. So it, you know, at any stage then, you know, you can go and say, well, I want to add a module, and maybe I want to add, for example, frameworks 20.5, or I want to add a risks module or a SWOT analysis or whatever else. So, you know, as James was saying, you know, you may have different canvases for different people. Well, you know, you can choose under the business model to say, I want a business canvas, I want the mission model canvas, a lean canvas. So any of those are all available for you to look at and explore. I'm just conscious of the time here as well. The other point I wanted to make, just to make sure that people were aware of, again, you know, have a look, you know, through if this is a tool, and we, you know, it's available for all teams to use and all members of the teams this year, which is great. And one of the other important things about it is the fact that there's an award for the team that has the best use of CurateFx in terms of defining ecosystems. And all of the previous award-winning projects are in there, including James's, who you know, who had a great job last year as well. So there is an award on this as part of the Catalyst Awards, and you know, so but I would suggest, you know, if you're interested, if you're not sure, ping me an email. We can get you guys set up. We can set the team up. They can start looking at it, and, you know, myself or any of the other kind of team people involved in CurateFx can jump on a call and, you know, provide you with some guidance and help as needed. But, you know, what we do hear back from the teams are, you know, you need to focus up front, as James was saying, on a lot of that kind of why we're doing this and what we want to get out of it, because the level of effort put in up front, you reap the rewards when you get into the how. you know, you've clarity in terms of the use cases. You know, you've buy-in from different stakeholders, and people understand what needs to happen. And you know, so I hope everybody found that the webinar was useful. I don't know, was there any final comments from James, Itasham, Jessica?
No, thanks for the opportunity, Kevin. I think I'm delighted to share the experience. And like you said, anybody have any questions, they want to reach out to you, and we'll be glad to help.
Likewise.
All right. Excellent. Well, look, I'd like to thank everybody for participating, and I hope you found it useful. And we will be sending out a recording of this presentation. And if anybody has any questions, you know, don't hesitate to ping me a message. So appreciate it all. Keep safe, and hopefully we'll get a chance to see each other face to face somewhere before the end of the year anyway, hopefully. All right, guys. Thanks very much.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.